We are so excited that you've joined us today because we are launching our podcast called Women, Work, and Weddings. We're really excited, and this is the first time, so here we go.
Yeah, here we go. Let's start with what's important. The drinks that we're drinking today.
We have an amazing bartender that we work with. Her company is called Behind the Bar Charlotte, and her name is Jessica.
Jessica,
and
we love you.
You can see her link to her information below, and she shared her signature cocktail with us, and it's called an upside down pineapple spiked mimosa. I'm going to show you mine because I messed up on Julia's, but this is what it's supposed to look like. So this is the first time that we're tasting it.
As you can see, mine's basically all the same color, and hers is what it's supposed to look like.
This is what mine's supposed to look like. So in this, we are doing, at the beginning of every podcast, we're going to highlight a bartender that does cocktails and drinks and bartends weddings because they come up with amazing signature cocktails, and so many of our couples are like, can you give me ideas for signature cocktails? Well, here you go. And we're actually going to try them for you. We're going to drink this throughout the episode, and it's going to get real. Very, very real. So
I've already had 2 glasses of champagne, so I'm doing great. Let's do this. Woo.
Okay, let's see, Jessica, what this tastes like. Oh, that's dangerous.
I don't taste anything.
It tastes like, okay, so let me give you the recipe. So it is 1 shot of vodka,
vanilla vodka, specifically.
Yeah, 1 shot of vanilla vodka, 1 shot of pineapple juice, champagne, and then you pour grenadine down the side, and it's supposed to sit on the bottom, so super fancy.
As you can see, something happened here.
I messed up. But this is really good for like a bride's
signature cocktail.
And then we will highlight a groom's signature cocktail on the next episode. You guys will have to follow us to figure out what that is.
I feel like a lot of times people know their names. They like name it after a dog, like Roxy Mule or something like that, but they don't actually know what kind of drink they want. So it's good for us to show people ideas. And plus we get to drink during each episode, so that's fun.
Yeah, it's going to be fun for all of us.
And for all of us. All right, let's get into it.
Okay, so our podcast is called Women, Work, and Weddings, but I want to kind of give you a background on who we are and why we're doing this. So I'll let Julia tell you a little bit about herself, and then I'll tell you a little bit myself, and then we'll go into all the nitty-gritty. Yeah.
It started off with Amy's my mom. We are a mother-daughter team. So what started all of this is didn't want to go to normal college. I was about to go to Auburn, and then I decided I'm going just because that's what everyone's telling me to do. I knew I would probably start a degree and be like, this is not what I want to do. I didn't want to waste all that money. So I ended up going to esthetician school because Mom was like, I've always been into skincare. I've had acne all my life, so skincare has always been a huge part of my life. So I went to Aveda here in Charlotte, and I got my license. And then March of 2020, I moved to Jacksonville, North Carolina with my now husband. And a week later, the lockdown took place. Lost my brand new job. I got 1 solid week there in a salon, and then I lost control of everything like a lot of people did. And during lockdown, you kind of think, what am I doing in life? A lot of people ponder their career and everything during that life, and I did as well. I had just started my career, but my 2 experiences that I had for an eyelash company and a salon, it was just very negative environments. And so I really sat a lot and thought about what I wanted to do. And then during this time, Mom was doing weddings back here in Charlotte. And so I started driving 4 hours back to Charlotte almost every weekend. 4 hours there, 4 hours back, just to assist her with weddings because little Amy was doing weddings all by herself. Crazy woman, designing and everything. She was just decorating, doing the whole thing. She was running the venue side as well. And so I would come just for like $50. I would drive 8 hours, and I would be like, I'm here, Mom. Like, I'm here to help you. And so I kind of fell in love with that. We had a lot of crazy experiences, and it was just this really cool world that I was dabbling in. And I was seeing her design side and seeing her put together these amazing looks for couples and pulling off everything that they provided for their own wedding. And that kind of lit a match in me because growing up, I always wanted to be an interior designer. And so seeing the design side and seeing the opportunities that this world would give me kind of just lit a match in me. And I decided that when I came home after my husband got in the military, because he's a Marine, After I came home, I really wanted to just jump headfirst into this. And at the time, Mom was only doing weddings at a specific venue. She was their lead person, not going to any other venues. And I was like, we're going to do a little bit more than that. We're going to take off running. And we did. We immediately started booking all over the place. Now we're in Florida, we're in South Carolina, North Carolina, open to wherever. We're going to Greece next year. So we just kind of took off running.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of piggyback on what Julia said, when she decided not to be an esthetician, she said, I just really don't want to touch people. And so it was such a blessing for her to, come on board. And she was like, let's do this. Let's partner up. And who better to partner with than your own daughter? And people ask us all the time, oh my gosh, is it difficult to, work together? And we're a little different because I feel like the reason why we flow so well together is because I respect her as an adult. I don't treat her like a kid. Her ideas are sometimes 10 times better than mine, and I listen to her, and we have that mutual respect, and we communicate really well. So I think that we are just a different breed of mom and daughter team. So
yeah, that's huge. I think almost everyone is like, oh, that must get tough sometimes. And really, I mean, we have our disagreements, but it's really not.
Yeah.
When we're at a different wedding, we're just like, I miss you. This is what I'm doing right now. Let's take a picture of what's going on. I'm just like, wish you were here.
I know. We're a good team. I feel like we're a good team. Our brides think we're a good team. So, it's all good. Okay, so a little bit about my background and my journey to where we're at right now. I've always been my adult life in the entrepreneur space because my husband is a lifelong entrepreneur. And so I got to live that journey with him. And then I started a program called The Entrepreneur's Wife. And so I spoke about being the wife of an entrepreneur, behind the scenes of what that looks like, because I just felt like no one was talking about the family side of entrepreneurship and all the shit that we have to go through. And so I really wanted to share that with other women. And that really sparked my love for women and what we go through. I mean, I've always been a girl's girl. I love, growing up, Julia can vouch for me just stopping random women and telling them how beautiful they are and loving on them, because I feel like we should all be that person. And so I did that. I wrote a book about the other side of entrepreneurship called The Untold Story of the Entrepreneur's Wife, little plug. And so we just, I just really loved it. And so then I started working at a wedding venue because I did some retreats and things like that. And Matt used to speak on stage at events. And so I had that event space background. And so I started helping someone with their venue and started doing weddings. And that just really snowballed into this whole thing. And then, of course, Julia drove weekends to come see me. I did all of everything behind the scenes when it comes to wedding planning. It was insane. I don't suggest that anybody do that by themselves. I ran the venue, I did the wedding planning, I did the decorating, I cleaned the toilets, it was a whole...
She was the go-to person. If someone was like, the toilet's not flushing, she's like, okay, let me fix that. But yeah. She was also like, where are we on the timeline? It was crazy when I was assisting you.
Yeah, it was nuts. So it was like one of those things. Have you ever had a moment in your life where you think back and you're like, oh, you kind of shiver, I'm glad that's not my life anymore. That's how I felt. But I grew so much from that time. And I think, my husband always says pain promotes progress. And I think those pain points of being a solo entrepreneur in the wedding space really helped me become who I am right now with the team, traveling all over the country, doing what we do. Yeah. And so I absolutely love wedding planning. It is one of my most favorite things. It incorporates all things that I love. It incorporates love, marriage, weddings, women.
Type A.
Yeah, type A personality where we have to get everything done. I think I'm less of a type A than you are. I think I float through life.
Like you have to be very type A to do design, because it's everything needs to line up perfectly. Even when I have my team decorate, I go behind them a little bit. I'm just like, there you go, perfect. There you go.
She's scary. I mean, the team's she's intense because she wants everything to be perfect, of course, for our couples. But I feel like I thank goodness for our team. And thank goodness for, I'm going to give a shout out to Kathleen, who's our personal assistant, also one of our planners. I don't know how I lived life without her. She keeps me straight. So it is one of those things where I don't really feel like I'm type A. I feel like I'm very structured. I like checklist. I like all of that. But I also get distracted very easy. So that's why we have notes, because if not, this would just be a hot mess.
That's why we have assistants too.
Yeah, for sure.
We text them in the moment.
So that's my backstory, and so you know a little bit about Julie and I, and through the journey of these podcast episodes, you'll hear more about like things that we've gone through and things that we've learned. But that's who we are, and so we're sharing. This podcast is about being raw, real, and vulnerable, about all aspects of what we were saying about being a woman, about self-worth, what that looks like, and then of course behind the scenes of weddings, which is hilarious half the time. We're just like, what is happening? Or we're like, this is amazing, or we're just, it's just such an experience. So we are going to dive into all that. So let's talk about women, worth, and weddings. What does that mean to you? So we're going to dissect this and tell you what it means to us. And we're going to start with women.
Women. I feel like that's a huge part. We're women. Obviously, this is our company. We're badass. Women need to know their worth. A lot of women struggle to know their worth. And that's a huge part in the industry as well, because they feel bad for upping their prices. But this is our career. Like, if you've been in it for a certain amount of years, you have a certain amount of experience. You need to up your prices. Like, when people say, so sorry, like, people always apologize when they up their prices. They're like, I'm so sorry that I'm actually like this much more as of this new year, as of this month. And we're like, okay, good.
Yeah.
Like, awesome. I'm so happy for you. Like, that's awesome. I'll share that price. Like, you need to know your worth. And that, because women just falls right into that. You need to know your worth. Like, women should be celebrated. Like, we are just this amazing beings.
I mean, we give birth to humans.
We're goddesses.
We, like, push humans out of us.
Yes.
That's insane to me. If you really think about it, like, we do all things. We give life to the world. We, like, cook, we clean, we have careers, we have friendships. We, like, balance so many things.
Juggle it all.
Yeah.
All of it. It's like, we're not in the old times. Like, we have our careers.
She says this a lot, old times.
Old times.
It makes me feel old for some reason when she says it.
We have careers nowadays. We have goals. We are doing shit nowadays. And we're juggling, cleaning, the groceries, making dinner lists, our husbands. We're juggling our dogs, our kids. We are just rock stars. Women are rock stars. And you need to know your worth.
Yeah. I think for worth for me, so you guys know how I feel about women. I'm your girl. If you get in trouble, you need help, you call me, I will help you out. I'm that person that gets up in the middle of the night, bails you out of jail. I'll bitch at you the entire time I'm driving you home, but I'm that girl that is there for you. Because I think
she goes up to strangers all the time, and she's like, oh my God, you're so beautiful. We'll be walking together, and I'm like, where's Mom? And then I look back, and she's like 10 feet behind me, talking to this woman, like holding her hand, face talking. Like, you're so beautiful. Like, just, oh, you're so beautiful. And they're always like, oh, thank you.
I think when you come from a genuine place, because I think that we don't hear that enough, we're always in our own headspace, right? We're just like floating through life. We're trying to get from point A to point B, just doing what we do. When someone stops you and acknowledges you as a human being, I think that's like a pretty powerful thing.
I'd be crying.
I know.
I'd be like,
she loves me
my whole day.
So I think, but worth falls into a lot of things. And this is something that I'm still working on. So I work on my self-worth a lot because, I think we question ourselves. Are we doing enough? Are we, especially when we're wearing so many hats, as an entrepreneur, business owner, we work 24/7. Yeah. And we have husbands who are like, hi, remember me, I still need you in my life.
Like, my love language is touch, so show me attention, please.
Yeah, my love language is not touch, so I'm like, don't stop.
No, please, is the house clean? Stay back, is the house clean?
Yeah, so we're going to dive into love languages for sure during these episodes because it's a real thing. So what I try to do now, because I am very focused on, and this sounds very vain, but I don't care. I'm very focused on the way that I look. And so, am I thin enough? Am I young enough? I mean, my God, my whole entire team is in their 20s. What was I doing?
Your generation, though, was like, everyone was skinny. Like, there was that generation, like, in the 90s and everything where everyone was, like, got a cigarette, glass of black coffee.
That's not true. I mean, it's kind of true. But, I mean, we grew up like if you don't look like a supermodel, then you know, flat butt, like, tiny body, like, whatever. You have to be that, and that's excellence if you are. And I'm a perfectionist, so I'm like, I got to be perfect. If I'm not pretty enough, if I'm not successful enough, then I'm not enough. And so I've really had to grow out of my body dysmorphia complex that I have, and just like eating disorders and all the things. And so I still have to work on that to this day. I mean, right before this podcast, I was like, Julia, can you tell me what I look like? Do I look fat in the video? You know, I still struggle with this. And so you're constantly having, I think that's a constant work in progress, knowing your worth and kind of owning where you're at and loving yourself is huge. And then weddings. So weddings are our livelihood. That's what we do. We do weddings. We put on these huge events, and people don't realize what goes on behind the scenes of a wedding and how much it takes to make it go smoothly. I think that we believe that everybody that attends the wedding is our client, is our person, is who we are supposed to make this happen for. And that includes the vendors. It includes every guest that shows up to the wedding, the family, and of course the bride and groom. And so if everybody's happy and they're walking away from the wedding feeling like this was amazing, and they come up to us and say, you guys killed it. They see us walking around sweating and like, you know, people think
and we do it in pretty dresses and half the time heels. So.
Yeah, so there's that. But actually, I stopped wearing heels because I lost feeling in one of my toes, and I figured that was like my sign that I should wear flats from now on. But it is a whole thing. It's a whole thing, and I think that we want to touch on each part of that in these podcasts about, you know, so you're gonna hear different things about self-growth and, you know, what we're working on, and we're going to be real about what we're struggling with, and we're going to, you know, bring humor into it, of course, and alcohol, which always helps, you know, everybody be super honest about things. So
a huge part of our podcast will be what we do. You know, it's our wedding tips, tricks, what to do, what not to do, but it's also going to be stories of ours, our funny stories, the crazy stories,
the horror stories.
You know, we have them. We've seen a lot of weddings, but also a lot of the times in our wedding planning, we're working solely with the women. We're working with the bride, and so it all kind of ties in together.
For the moms,
work, and weddings.
Yeah, it's gonna be perfect. I'm excited about it. So let's talk about the most memorable moment at a wedding. So I know that Julia has hers, and then I'll share mine. So to this date, what is that one thing that you were like, oh, this was like so memorable to me? Like, what is that for you?
So my memory that comes to mind is the moment that I was assisting you still. Like, I wasn't taking charge of anything. Like, I wasn't the full planner. I wasn't anything really. I was just assisting you. And this couple had their first dance. And they both came from a dance background. And they had their first dance. And then I didn't know what was happening. You knew, but I didn't know. They broke into a flash mob. Like, tons of their dance community jumped up onto the dance floor. Huge flash mob. And I just remember standing in the corner of the tent, just like watching it, like wide-eyed, like I just saw Taylor Swift. And I was just like, wow, like, this is so crazy. Like, this is what I'm doing. Like, I actually see a future in this, because this is fun. Like, I love this moment. It was kind of like one of those turning moments for me when I really knew I wanted to be more than assisting mom randomly. I wanted to actually jump into this, because it was just like such an awesome moment. Like, it was just like a movie moment. And they were just doing their little salsa, and then all of a sudden everyone was doing salsa. Like, all the people were on the dance floor. It was just like a really awesome moment to me.
Yeah.
And so that's one that stuck with me. That was kind of like a turning point for me. It was just like a very memorable moment. So,
yeah, I remember that was good.
Yeah.
That was awesome. And I'm the kind of person, so we have two different personalities. So Julie doesn't watch people dance on the dance floor. That's not her thing.
In a closet somewhere. She does not. I hate it.
I love watching people dance. I'm fascinated by it. And my face just...
She just like standing there like... And then I'm like, I can't look at the dance floor right now. I hate it so much.
I love it. It's just so fun. Anyway, so I mean, that's interesting that was a turning point for you, because
but you can't ignore a flash mob. A flash mob. I hope a flash mob is not cringy. I mean, I'm sure some were cringy, but that was not cringy.
No, that was good. They were
amazing
because they dance. They're like they have this whole like thing.
They were dancers.
Yeah,
they're like
whole thing. It was incredible. I think my most memorable moment was a turning point in my business where I realized that I'm actually really, I mean, not to be conceited, but I'm actually really good at this. So I had a wedding, and I'm gonna give her a shout out. Her name is Joy. She was so sweet. She was one of our like such a sweet bride.
Sweet.
Mm-hmm. But she let me do whatever I wanted in her wedding, and so we got to put everything together to, you know, planning to florals to design the whole thing, and it was so beautiful and so sweet, and it was just one of those moments where I was doing what I was doing, but I was very aware of where I was at in my life, and I was like, this is it. This is where I'm like, this is the path that I'm on, and I absolutely adore what I'm doing. Like, I get to plan parties. Like, I go to work.
The most important days of some people's lives.
I know.
Like, some people just like, there's the kind of person that has the Pinterest boards since they were little, or like of what their wedding's gonna look like. And there's the house one. I was the house one, but I totally understand. It's like that show. What's that show called? Wedding or Mortgage?
Yeah, Wedding or Mortgage. Yep, that's it.
That's it. Some people just...
She was mortgage girl. She was the one that's like, I choose mortgage. I just have a small wedding, and I'm going to choose mortgage, which I think is super responsible.
I mean, I got married in 2020. I got married on the beach. No restaurant could take a big group. No venue was doing big groups. It was like, let's get married on the beach. Small little Italian restaurant. We're good. Yeah, I'll have a big event one year. Maybe, I don't know, what's the anniversary that's like?
An event. Well, yeah, 10 years.
Baby showers. Gonna go all out. People are gonna be like, what the whole hell am I walking into right now? It's gonna be like I don't know. I'm gonna go all out with everything else in my life. But I did it with my wedding because I didn't.
But I love always. I mean, we did a backyard wedding in April. Was it April that we did?
It was last spring.
Yeah, and it was one of the most beautiful weddings. I mean, follow us on Instagram so that you can see like the weddings that we do. I mean,
yeah, we have that one posted.
Yeah, you can do a backyard wedding, or you can do a huge elaborate like wedding. But I feel like that wedding was so beautiful. It was so beautiful.
Yeah. But going back a little bit, I feel like Joy's wedding was such a huge moment for you, because this was the first time you ever really did florals where you signed up for it. When you're doing DIY as a wedding planner, shit gets thrown on you. But that was the first time that you were like, I'm doing this. Like, let me like make this a beautiful thing. It was kind of that moment where we had like a pivot point of maybe less really rustic weddings, which we still do rustic weddings and we love them. Like, we do our own flair to them because we know how nowadays. But at the very beginning, it's like, you want mason jars and wood planks? That's our go-to. Like, we would do that 100 times over to a point where we're like, I don't want to do it anymore. But that was one of the weddings that you were like, let's kind of pivot our design. Like, every wedding designer has their own style and their own flair and their own thing that they like to promote. And we kind of had a turning point right there. It was like, we chose vases. We have an inventory full of vases. Like, you fully did the whole shebang. You were amazing. And now look at you. You are doing florals in Charleston now for our wedding design. So,
yeah, it's fun. I mean, we get to, I think everybody has buckets, right? Buckets in your life where it's your relationships buckets, it's your, you have relationships, career, spiritual, but also you have your creative side. So I feel like at this moment in my life right now, like I have all my buckets filled, which is great because sometimes you're uneven, but the biggest bucket that gets left out is your creative side. And so you got to find something that makes you fulfilled in that sense, whether it be music, like learning to play the piano or doing art. But for me, doing like flowers and like creating, that's my creative side, and it allows me to kind of do art for other people. And it's, the best part of what Julie and I do is when the bride and groom, or the bride and bride, or groom and groom, whatever, but comes out and they're like, this, you nailed it. This is beautiful. This is amazing.
Love when everything is a complete surprise to them and they just walk out and they're just like, I love having that moment.
Yeah.
But, wedding design, it was something that you started first. I learned a lot of what I know nowadays from you, but now you're just like, I'm
now
just
I learned
the
from her
side.
I know.
Show me pictures of what you want.
Yeah, it's crazy because we had an event last week and there was a lot of rentals and things that Joya designed, and I picked everything up with our team, and they were like, I was like, oh wow, that's pretty, and they were like, you don't know what she got? And I'm like, oh no, I know. I just whatever she does is fine. So she has taken the design side and made it her own. So it's a beautiful thing. We're a good team.
Okay, so and this one's switched sometimes. Sometimes we get couples that don't have a venue yet and we help them. Sometimes we have couples that have their venue. Most of the time, couples have their venue first and then they get the planner.
Mm-hmm.
And so for venue, that's kind of like it. Everything falls in place once you have your venue. If you have your venue, then sometimes you already know, I gotta go through their caterer. I gotta go through their planners. I gotta go through bartending, rentals. Yeah. So venue is most common to get first because it kind of, a lot of times people have their go-to vendors that they use with the venue. And so it kind of gives you like, what's the term?
Container.
The container, that's what we always call it.
It's a container to put the rest of your wedding in. So.
Yeah. And then next comes your planner.
So planners, like Joy said, it can be switched. A lot of people will hire us before they even have anything just because they want help. And it's, we always joke and say, yeah, we'll be a realtor because we take them around to different venues. And
we ask all the questions for them.
Because we know what to look for, especially when it's budget related of, what you can and can't do, what venues to choose depending on your budget, which is huge because I just had a conversation with a couple last night that, they had a certain budget. And I was like, well, then you need to make sure that you look at a venue that doesn't require you to have their catering and their alcohol, which is a big deal. So we're going to dive into that too in another episode. So planners are huge. A lot of venues require you to have a minimum of a day of. Now they're really pushing partial.
Go.
Okay, so each podcast we want to share tips and tricks. We want to share some of our own experience, what we've learned along the way. We want to share the do's and don'ts. We want to share some of our workflows a little bit. And so today we're going to do what order we typically get the vendors for our couples. There's a workflow that we have. We like to do typically a certain order for each couple because if not, they're like wanting to get their cake 12 months out. And if you're a wedding planner, that's not necessary. And so first is venue. Sometimes we get couples that don't have their venue yet. I personally enjoy that because I'm like, let me be a realtor. Let me go see all these new venues. But most of the time, couples have their venue, and they have an idea of what they want for each venue or each vendor because venues typically have a list of vendors that you have to use and vendors that they recommend. And so everything kind of flows in place when you have your venue first. Because it's the container.
Yeah, exactly. It's the container that you put everything else in. So get your container and everything else will flow. Because, like Julia said, there's rules that venues have, and you want to make sure that if that's your venue and you love it, then you got to follow the rules.
Because some venues require you to have partial, and some require just a day of. Some don't require anything, but that's very rare nowadays. Very rare. Because if you don't have a planner, it falls on the venue manager. And the venue manager is there for outlets, not to keep your timeline.
Right. Or the DJ or your photographer. And I just want to give you a side note, they don't like that.
No. We'll touch base on what a venue manager is later on.
Yeah, we'll do venue manager versus planner in another episode. That's a whole, we'll take up a whole episode for that.
Yeah.
So
venue, planner, and then we move into caterer.
So catering is super important because they book up super fast. There's a lot of steps when it comes to catering. So you want to make sure, people are like, hey, Amy, I'm ready for catering. I want to do a tasting. And I'm like, that's not how it works. So, you need to pick a menu and then you need to have a consultation and then you can do a tasting. And so tastings are fun. We go on tastings.
They are. I mean, sometimes they're free, sometimes they're $50, but you have like this 4-course meal. Like it's fun sometimes.
It is fun.
Sometimes.
Sometimes not. But I like going on tastings because again, if you're one of our brides, you know this, and if you're not, here's what you will learn. We have control issues. We like to control all environments. And so when our couples go to a caterer, sometimes they will put...
I try to upsell them.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the business. They try to upsell you.
Yeah.
They try to add rentals, which is my baby. So I'm like, take it off. Kindly take it off. Because the linens that they give you are wrinkled, stained. Sometimes they're perfect.
Not
but
all
like,
venues.
Not all caterers. Some
companies.
caterers have like really good quality stuff, but we've ran into a lot here in Charlotte where they aren't the best quality, but they charge you also more than what a rental company would charge you. Because what they do is sometimes they have it in stock, but sometimes they also rent it. And if they're renting it, they need to make some money for doing all the work for you. So they kind of upcharge a little bit. So that's one thing to look out for.
Yeah.
In bartending tends to... Did you get to the bottom of it?
I got to the vodka part.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the bartending tends to be more expensive as well. I mean, granted, it's a lot easier if your caterer and bartender are one.
Yeah, but you just have to make sure that your budget matches what is about to be presented to you, because it's going to be...
Because it definitely is a little bit more. Yeah. And also one thing I would look for is what they're displaying everything. We have a caterer here that we absolutely love, but if you get their most basic package, it looks like you just got someone to drop some stuff off for you. And so you definitely want the stainless steel, like, pans and everything.
Yeah.
Like, don't you agree? And that's
for 100%. I mean, give a shout out to
City Barbecue.
City Barbecue. Love you. Their display and how they set, I call it
elevated
barbecue.
There you go.
Because, thank you. The way they set up is just so beautiful, and, you know, we love them. I mean, if...
It's skillet pans, greenery, signs, like the whole 9 yards. And sometimes you have really awesome high-scale caterers, but their display isn't quite there if you get the basic option. So that's also one thing to look for. Are you getting, like, disposable stuff, or are you getting stainless steel?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a lot of...
Caterer is a huge thing. It's a whole beast.
Yeah. So, and know that we will dive deep into all of these vendors throughout our episodes, but we're just touching on each one. Okay, so what's next?
Okay, next is photographer. So what we start off with our meetings when we're getting the basics, we ask, what's your style? Because you can't just be like, photographer, find me one. You have to actually look into the style, because there's dark and moody, there's very sunset, there's bright and airy, and there's so many different types of photography. You have to find... If you go into your Pinterest board for weddings, like, what do you have most pictures of when it comes to your couple photos? Because that's what I usually say, because people always lean, even if they're not even realizing it, if they're, like, saving poses and random stuff like that, and there tends to be, like, a vibe there. It tends to be a style.
Because there's portrait style, there's, candid, and sometimes you want to mix and match, but the biggest mistake that a lot of couples make is they love a photographer, but they want them to do the style that they don't do. And that's really frustrating.
And I didn't understand that either, because when I was getting married, and I was signing up for engagement photos and everything like that, my mom found someone for me because she was in the business and I wasn't. Her go-to person, very portrait style. And I was like, I love sunset style. And he was like, okay. And I was one of those people, because I didn't know. People don't understand, like, the photographer has their style. I wasn't in the business yet, in my defense. But they have their style. You have to look at their Instagram. You got to look at their galleries and everything. Yeah. Because they do their style. You can't choose someone that's dark and moody and be like, I want bright and airy. Can you do that for me? Because the answer's no. Yeah. You got to find your vibe.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the whole thing. Yep. And then with that comes videography. Sometimes they have the package where it's grouped together. Sometimes you got to ask them who their go-to videographers are.
Because you want your photographer and videographer to work together. We've been to many weddings where the photographer and videographer are competing, and that's never good energy.
Yeah, it's not the vibe. It makes couples kind of uncomfortable sometimes when they're being told to do two separate things.
Yeah, it's giving Mean Girl vibes, even if they're not. It just is.
They're just trying to get their own style and their own moments captured. But if they know each other's...
I just was. I said it's giving
Mean Girls. Yeah, I'm so proud of you. Okay. They're trying to, like... You just need someone that has the same workflow. Like, they understand each other. They understand the vibe. Yeah. They can look at each other and be like, let's do this next. Not... well, I want to do this. Yeah. So you just need to ask who they recommend when you get a photographer.
For sure.
If you want a videographer, because some people don't. It's kind of like 50-50.
I think I always say, if it isn't a hell yes, then it's a hell no. So if you're not like, I really want a videographer, then don't get a videographer. If you're like, so that's the gauge. That's the gauge of my life. If I'm not like, yes, oh my God, I want to do it, then it's a no. Because
like, are you attached to it?
Yeah.
Are you attached to the idea?
Yeah.
No, you're not in love. Don't spend that couple $1,000s on that, please.
Or don't marry that person.
That was dark. Anywho, DJ.
So we have a go-to DJ. He is all things JuJu Lee. He does like
everything.
We
love him.
He's the best. And his company is called Famous Music Group. His name's Travis. So if you are our couple, he takes care of all things entertainment. So
bands, strings, you name it.
Yeah.
Because we spent a couple years where we were dealing with other DJs that weren't him. And we were like, we don't like this experience. I would come into each wedding when I was assisting, and I would say, is Travis here? No? Okay. That's great. That's great. Looking forward to this. Because DJs just make or break your wedding. They truly do.
And you gotta, you have to know your style. You have to know, do you want your DJ out on the dance floor doing all the things? Do you want them pulling grandma out on the dance floor to do the cha-cha? What's it called? Cha-cha?
Cha-cha slide.
Do you want that? Then you gotta know. So, sorry.
Know your style. Know what they include. Are they gonna pull up with not a table or a damn thing? Or are you gonna have to provide the speaker? Like, no. If you find someone really on the low end for a DJ, you're gonna get what you paid for.
Yeah.
That's like, there's no like.
We feel passionate about DJs.
We do. We're very harsh about DJs, but we're planners, and we've had some horrible experiences. We've had DJs say, "That's not my problem. I'm not doing that." And I'm like, "Well, there's pizza here, and no one knows there's pizzas here because they're dancing. You're in charge of dancing. Can you just like make a little announcement?" And they're like, "No."
One time I MC.
I'm telling mom. I'm telling mom on you.
I had to MC one time, and that was an experience. You don't want me.
Or if you don't have a planner, like,
who's gonna do it?
Who's gonna do it?
Aunt Susie, is 2 bottles into some champagne at your
Or
cocktail.
she's not paying attention and she plays the wrong song.
Okay. So DJ's important. we will drop Travis's link below because he's amazing. So
yes. All right. Next we have 8 months out. That's my go-to. 8 months out. If you don't already have your rentals or your idea of who's designing your wedding, either if it's a family or you're hiring a professional, 8 months out, you need to hire a wedding designer, or you need to figure out who in your family is doing the design for you, who is putting everything together, who's taking it all down. And that goes hand in hand with florist. So once you get your design figured out, please have it figured out of who's doing it. If you're doing it, like, figure everything out when you're around 8 to 6 months out.
Yeah, because it's important. A lot of people don't realize that some planners and venues don't. You're going to need someone.
Yeah.
Setup is important, but breakdown is more important, I feel like, than setup because everybody's
everyone leaves.
Drinking and everyone leaves, and then who's cleaning up, and you don't want to be dinged by the venue because you stayed a bunch of stuff.
An hour or two after as well. We had a wedding where no one was set to break down, and we were frantically trying to tell family, like, they are going to be charged X amount because you guys are still talking and drinking in the driveway, and they need to be out of here in 30 minutes. And everything, like, we even put everything on one table for them to just take with them. And it was just like, you need to have your designated people.
Yeah.
Like, that's,
and,
like, huge.
Yeah, and tell your planner who those people are so they can make sure that you're getting stuff out for sure.
Yeah, and rentals, that's also a huge thing. With rentals, they only have a certain amount of things in their inventory. If you wait last minute and you're trying to get the most desirable item, like, it's not going to be there.
Yeah.
And usually per city, there's at least like 3 big rental companies that provide like, for all the big venues and everything like that. And so your options are slim. You don't have 20 companies to choose from. Typically, you have like some main trustworthy ones.
Right.
And so they only have a certain amount of everything, basically. Like, you can have stuff sold out. So I think 8 to 6 months, you need to figure out what you need to rent, what your venue provides. You should already know, but then figure out if you need to rent any chairs, anything like that. But that's a huge, like 8 to 6 months. That's a huge, like,
that's
you gotta take care of some stuff.
Yeah,
that's a huge thing.
That's like a critical, like, pivotal part of your wedding planning is that 8 to 6 month spot, because a lot of things need to be done and checked off, and so.
And we'll go into depth when it comes to, like, you know, what all that includes when it comes to rentals. Because couples don't also understand, like, each area that you really need to think about. It's a huge thing. Okay, and then cake.
So cake is something that
it's fun.
Cake is fun, but it's so funny. I love you guys. You guys, our couples. But so many couples, they book me and they're like, "When do I get to do a cake tasting?" And I'm like, "You're getting married in 2025. You're not doing cake tasting yet. You can do a cake tasting. You can do it. You can do it. I'm not saying you can't do what you want to do. You can, but." I mean, we typically do cake tastings about 5 months out, 4 to 5 months out.
Yeah, 4 to 5. You don't want to overwhelm yourself. There's a lot of huge vendors you need to get in the first couple months, and they cost a lot for the deposits and everything. You don't want to overwhelm yourself. So that's one thing that sometimes you can't even book the cake until you're a certain amount. Yeah. And they will be like, reach out to me when when you're closer to dates out.
So, I mean, cake is one of the last things that you kind of get, and there's so many different options to cake, and we're going to dive into that in another episode, because there's so many different styles now that are happening, dessert tables, trends. We're going to go through all that, but so that is
definitely no. Then we have transportation.
Okay,
you gotta think about transportation.
Yeah, transportation.
And that goes hand in hand with hotel room blocks.
Yeah, so last two I think are transportation and hotel room blocks. So those are the things that you need to book too. Hotels will not book you so far out. You have to be closer to date. And so you want to make sure that you are getting your hotel room blocks, then your transportation, so that because they're going to ask you where they need to pick up, where they need to go. So those two go hand in hand.
Yeah, because if you hire transportation, you can't just be like, this is my date, you're hired, here's my deposit. They want to know all the details. They want to know the nitty-gritty. They want to know your vendor, the venue. They want to know your coordinator. They want to know your hotels, if you have multiple, what time they're picking up, what time they're dropping off, how many trips they need to make. Like, it's a whole thing on its own.
They have
all the questions.
Yeah,
that's why they're one of the last, because you have all the answers at that point.
Yeah, for sure. So that is our tip for this episode of the kind of the format. What did I say? Our podcast. Oh, I thought you were correcting me. For our podcast. You'll hear that a lot. What I say. I say that all the time because I just say words, and sometimes they don't fit what I'm talking about. Anyway, so the order of your vendors. That is your tip for the day. You can do whatever you want, but we found that doing it in this order, one, keeps you from having to put so many deposits down at one time. Booking the most important ones so that you get who you want, and the flow and the ease of your planning is dependent on who you book and when you book it. Yeah. So that is our tips and tricks.
Tips and tricks. Let's move on, guys.
Okay, so this is our first episode. I want you guys to go to JuJu Lee Events /follow. That's where you're going to go, and you're going to be able to go down the rabbit hole of all things JuJu Lee Events, whether it is our podcast, our Facebook, our Instagram, our YouTube. So you're listening to this, you can actually watch what's happening, and then, follow us, comment, like. So we're going to drop these every week, so hopefully you get a little bit from this, whether you're just wanting to connect with other women, or you're wanting to get some inspiration, or just laugh together, or you're a bride that's really wanting some tips on your wedding. We're here for you.
Yeah, next episode we're going over venues, so that'll be a huge thing.
So again, JuJu Lee Events /follow. Make sure that you like, comment, and watch the next episode.
And follow.